Okay, great. Welcome everyone to Urban's webinar on how to be a successful mobile therapist in the new normal. We still have a few people joining slightly late, but I think people can join during the presentation. That's absolutely fine. So diving straight in, before we really get into the content, I first wanted to do a few introductions both to Urban, and as you may have noticed from the other faces on Zoom, a few other people who have joined us for the webinar. So in terms of Urban, our mission is really to empower millions of people living in cities around the world to lead happier and healthier lives by turning the wellness industry into something you can book from your phone. So we're a platform that connects professionals in wellness and beauty with customers looking for those services. In terms of our journey, we started in 2014, just in London. And then over the last 6 years, we've spread out across a number of cities, both in the UK and France. We've also expanded the services that we offer, having started offering massage and now offering a range of also beauty treatments, physical well-being such as physiotherapy and osteopathy, as well as fitness treatments as well. And then up until this year, we've reached the milestone of having completed over 600,000 wellness appointments, which is something we're really proud of in conjunction with our partner professionals as well. The second set of introductions I just wanted to give before we dive into the main section is a number of people who will be joining our panel for a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. We're really pleased to have such a great selection of professionals from the industry joining us tonight. So we have Leslie Blair, who is Chair for Babtac and Sibtac, Samantha Turner from Neom Organics, Megan Murray from Jing Advanced Massage Training, Alan Billington from CityLit, Ben May from Barber and Blow, and Stacey Shim will be joining us slightly late from CPBA. So we have a really interesting selection of representatives from industry bodies, from schools, and also from private companies. So really interested to get some different perspectives on some of the topics that we're going to be discussing this evening. So into what we actually are going to be discussing this evening. The main thing that we want to share is around the opportunity that we've seen for mobile wellness kind of post the first lockdown, and then really share some best practices around how you can remain safe and compliant within all of the new guidelines that have come about as a result of COVID-19. But also beyond that, how you can really stand out in this new normal in the world of mobile wellness. And then, as I mentioned, we'll close out by just giving a little bit of information around how Urban can help with this. And then really interestingly, the Q&A at the end with the industry panel around the topics that we presented. Just a disclaimer, because I know there are some Urban professionals also joining the webinar. Some of this content you may be familiar with through some of our other education channels. So just a heads up on that one. So in terms of the opportunity for mobile wellness, I think it's quite an obvious thing to say, and I'm sure everyone is aware of it, but people's habits have changed a lot as a result of COVID-19. And I think we've seen that in kind of all aspects of our lives and how we think and act in different ways. And wellness is really no different from that. What we saw at Urban after the lockdown is we really saw a huge amount of pent-up demand when we reopened, and then a gradual recovery to our kind of pre-lockdown booking levels. And we're really busy at the moment. We're in a situation when we're unable to fulfill up to around 3,000 orders per week. So that's customers looking for treatments and not finding professionals to meet those. In slight kind of contrast to that, the reports that we have been hearing from fellow professionals and companies in the industry is that the net hasn't necessarily been the same return to the high street. So just some stats around this. I think in terms of the mobility of populations such as London, which is obviously one of the markets that we serve, the use of public transport is at about 50% of pre-COVID levels. And then specifically within kind of wellness and beauty, the UK saw around 5% less salons reopening versus other European countries. So we really have seen that kind of challenging climate that a lot of high street businesses, including wellness businesses, are facing. We've also seen and discussed that it's a great time to be mobile and to be trying mobile. So a lot of clients are trying mobile for the first time. Barber & Blow, we have Ben on the call representing them, but around 50% of Barber & Blow customers who are on Urban are actually Barber & Blow customers who had previously booked for in-person treatments at Barber & Blow's locations and are now preferring to book at home. So even in that very small microcosm, we are seeing that switch of customers who previously would go to a physical location, now booking at home. So the challenge, I think, is quite a big one, and one that I'm sure all of you are aware of already. But yeah, brick and mortar salons and spas are facing a host of challenges. And just some statistics here from the NHBF, which I think are interesting to share and important to be aware of. So 3 in 4 salons and barbershops, according to their study, reported that since reopening after the lockdown, business was down compared to the same period last year. They're also seeing, businesses are also seeing that this is likely to remain the case for the coming months as well. So 2 in 3 expecting business to remain slow in the next 3 months as well. Perhaps most alarmingly, around 40% said that they could not say for sure if their business would survive until Christmas. And then looking across the beauty sector as a whole as well, 40% of businesses again saying that they're not earning enough to cover their outgoings, including rent, overhead, staff, costs and stock. So a really challenging time for kind of traditional brick and mortar salons and spas. So we're aware as a result of that, that unfortunately there are people in the industry who have been affected, may be facing reduced or may have lost their work entirely. And so we are seeing people starting to look towards mobile as an opportunity to either top up or replace the earnings that they've lost. I guess some of the advantages that we see at Urban, and we hear a lot from our professionals about the advantages of working mobile, are obviously increasingly important, meeting that customer demand for at-home services. There's also the continuing benefit of kind of removing some of those traditional overheads of renting a space in a salon or a spa. There's a huge advantage in terms of flexibility and really working on your terms. A lot of our professionals also have commitments around study or other work or childcare or even just family and social time. And working mobile really gives you the opportunity to kind of manage your diary according to what really works for you. And another one that's become kind of even kind of come sharper into focus post-COVID is really not being limited by capacity restrictions in physical salons, which has obviously become more of an issue with all of the guidelines put in place around social distancing and making sure that people are safe when they do go into those physical locations. So with all of that, I just wanted to quickly introduce Natalie, who's one of our professionals at Urban, one of our massage professionals, and just wanted to hand over to her just to share a little bit of her first-hand experience of working mobile and also partnering with Urban.
Yeah, hi, my name's Nats and I've been working with Urban Massage for the past 2.5 years. One of the great things I love about working with Urban, or why I was attracted to it, was because I have complete control over my diary. I find it very flexible and I'm able to choose the hours that suit me alongside my family and with my studies. I also love working with Urban because I'm able to choose what areas I want to work at. So I could maybe work in just zone 1 or I could work zones 1 to 3, but it's entirely under my control. I also feel really safe working with Urban because, as we all know, we're in a pandemic and Urban requires all their therapists to do COVID training, which not only makes me feel reassured that I'm protected as a therapist, but clients also feel that the therapists are up to a certain standard. Urban's also given me greater independence. I feel more in control of when I want to work, how I want to work, and it's just given me great confidence as a newly qualified therapist to practice my massage skills, gain confidence to maybe upskill. I'm now undertaking a level 4 in sports massage because of the confidence I've gained through working as a mobile therapist. So I think if you're looking for flexibility, if you're looking for, I feel I've got job security because I am very busy. And like I said, you do have control over how many hours you want to work, whether it's full-time or part-time, but it's entirely up to you. And Urban really do look after their staff. So go for it. I say go for it. It's fantastic and it's well worth it, especially given the current times.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Natalie. Yeah, really lovely to hear. And I think a lot of the points that you made, although very kind of specific to Urban as well, apply a lot to working mobile in general and the confidence that that can give you and the flexibility that it can give you. So yeah, thank you very, very much. Great. So kind of following on from a topic that Natalie also mentioned in terms of following COVID-related guidelines, just wanted to also share some advice around being safe and compliant. Obviously a very hot topic at the moment, and also a moving topic with new guidelines also coming in today as well. I guess I first wanted just to mention that being safe and compliant isn't something completely new. It's not something that only relates to COVID-19 and the guidelines and restrictions around that. I think any time that you're working mobile, it's really important to put yourself in the kind of a safe position. And one of the things around that is insurance. So anyone who is thinking about working mobile, really important to have the correct business insurance in place. And just as a kind of direction on this, the requirements that we have for therapists that we would recommend kind of to anyone working mobile as well. Obviously very important to have an in-date policy, to have a minimum cover limit of at least £1 million, to make sure that the treatments you offer are actually specified in your policy. So you're really watertight in case any claims are made against you by a client. And then in terms of the type of cover that you should look for, really important to have some cover for causing any accidental property damage. So, damaging someone's property when you enter to perform a service, or accidentally causing any bodily injury. And these are typically covered on under a public liability policy. So that's definitely one thing to look out for and make sure that you have. And the second one is making sure that you're covered for any malpractice. So this is actually any kind of issues or injuries that arise out of kind of a negligent act while you're performing your treatments. And those are typically covered under a professional liability or professional indemnity policy or a medical malpractice policy. So again, after the call, we're going to share a little bit more detail around this, but just one thing that we wanted to make sure that anyone thinking of a career in mobile was aware of. And then moving more specifically to the kind of new COVID guidelines, I guess before we dive into the detail of those guidelines, one thing I really wanted to kind of reiterate and just discuss was why these guidelines are actually so important. So it's from a few angles. One is it's obviously key that you're not putting your livelihood at risk in any way by not being compliant. There's also kind of a greater good side, which also impacts, hopefully, or doesn't hopefully impact your business long term, but helping everyone avoid a second lockdown. The more of us that can be compliant within those guidelines, especially while working, we can have a real impact in helping reduce the risk of that. And then there's also a factor of really building customer confidence, whether that's the customers that you work directly with and hope become returning customers, but also across the industry as a whole. So one thing I really wanted to share to highlight this is some of the Trustpilot reports that we've received as Urban since reopening, and just how often kind of follow shieldings and keep up with COVID procedures of sanitation and hand washing. And in the next one, felt really reassured by all the safety measures. So it really is something that we've seen customers really valuing. So yeah, one really to pay a lot of attention to. I guess in terms of the detail of what is required as part of the COVID guidelines. So some quite obvious, I imagine, but still worth reiterating, I think. So first of all, do not work if you have any symptoms or anyone that you live with has symptoms. Secondly, in terms of protective equipment or PPE, it's required to wear a clear visor and a type 2 face mask. In terms of what a type 2 face mask means, it's a medical face mask made up of a 3-ply construction, and it must be disposable. And you'll need to change that mask once it becomes either moist or damaged or difficult to breathe through. So really important to follow those guidelines closely. Also important to increase the frequency of hand washing and surface cleaning while you're working. And I know we've all got very used to those protocols and the happy birthday hand washing procedures as well, but one to keep top of mind. Really important to communicate ahead with your clients to make sure you're arranging a safe working space to work in. Also now, one of the recent changes in the guidelines to download the NHS QR code and link that to your business address, which as a mobile therapist can be just your home address. But you do now need to require that, you do now need to carry that with you to bookings so that you can offer it to customers as a track and trace method. And then finally, more than ever, really important to ensure that you are completing consultation forms before the treatments that you do with a client. And one thing we suggest is even keeping a dated log of the PPE that you use as part of that form, just so that you're covered in case of any issues that may come up later. So that's kind of the base level of just making sure that you are compliant with those minimum standards. But we also wanted to share with you some information about how you can also really stand out in the new normal. So I think the first thing that we've seen, and kind of referring back to those ratings and those reviews I mentioned earlier, there's a lot you can do to do more than just the bare minimum with hygiene. So some images you can see on the slides here are some examples of all of the kit that urban therapists are using at the moment to make sure they are as kind of hygienic as possible. So things like also having masks for your clients in case they don't have them, covering your table and your headrest with disposable covers if you use a table for massage or waxing or other treatments. Carrying as much of your own equipment as possible, so you can use your own hand sanitizer or soap, your own nail brush to wash your hands and nails, a towel for drying your own hands, and plastic bags for disposing your own equipment. And of course, obviously having disposable disinfectant wipes or a spray, so that any equipment you're using, you can kind of sanitize that between treatments and also at the end of the day. I guess in terms of like a routine as well that we suggest, or we give as kind of advice to follow for before, during and after the treatment. So in terms of before the treatment, I mentioned already, but communicating ahead with clients can be really valuable, both to check again if they have any symptoms, to check that they've washed their hands and also showered if it is required, if it's something like a massage treatment. Put on your visor ready for arrival so you don't have to already enter the property and create any risk. Just to avoid contact as much as possible, both with the property and the client. So, any unnecessary kind of handshaking at the moment, although it's kind of sad not to do that, important not to. Removing any kind of excess, jewelry, or removing your shoes when you enter the property. Obviously, immediately setting up and disinfecting your equipment. And then again, washing your hands thoroughly once you've arrived, obviously if you've been traveling and the risk of any kind of contamination during your journey. Then during the treatment, I think always important to reconfirm if the client has been exposed to the virus or has any symptoms, even if you've had this communication ahead, just in case anything's changed. If you are using the client's, say, table or surface to put any products or equipment, also make sure to disinfect that both before and after you use it. And then if you are touching the face for a treatment, whether it's a facial or a massage, do make sure that you use gloves and also get the consent of the client to do so first. And then finally, for after the treatment, Again, important to wash your hands and disinfect your equipment. One thing that can be a really nice extra mile is giving your client also that hygiene aftercare advice. So for instance, encouraging them to wash their towels around 60 degrees, a high temperature, to make sure that they're disinfected, and washing their hands as well. And obviously putting any disposables that you bring with you into a bag, and then getting the client's consent to dispose that in their bin as well. And then at the end of your day, so after all of your treatments, again, washing hands and shower, leaving your equipment in a ventilated place, washing your clothes as well, and sanitizing anything else that you've had on your person, like keys, phone, jewelry, etc. So that was a very quick run through of kind of the before, during, and after, but we can also discuss this more at the end in the Q&A as well. So one thing I've mentioned quite a lot and just wanted to really pull out is the importance of communicating very clearly to your clients at this time. So I think this is important both before a treatment, when you're trying to advertise your services to clients. Make sure you really say, okay, I'm doing this extra mile. It can be a factor in getting that booking to begin with. But also during the treatment, really reiterate and demonstrate the measures that you're taking and explain why. You can even rehearse this if you need to. It may feel a little bit silly, but can have a really good impact of just really putting your client at ease. So again, just kind of on that theme, just wanted to introduce another urban professional, Nunzia, who has been doing quite a lot of kind of extra work around these kind of extra mile hygiene measures with her clients. So just wanted to bring Nunzia in at this point to share some also first-hand advice.
Hello, everybody. I'm Nunzia. I've been working with Urban for the last 2.5 years now. And I've, like Natalie, I've joined Urban due to the flexibility it offers. In fact, I'm doing this job at weekends in conjunction with my profession in HR in higher education. And I've always been extremely busy with Urban, and they are doing a tremendous job. I've been extremely happy with them. In terms of my advice today for communicating with clients, I'd say the best advice is to have a clear and open conversation with the client. Make sure you cover all the safety steps as much as possible, because you want to make sure the client feels comfortable with you, and you want to you want to reassure them that they're in safe hands. Also, another piece of advice I would like to share is to take advantage of the instant messaging tool that Urban has. For example, pre-COVID, I used to send a message to the client, let's say a couple of hours before the treatment, whereas now, post-COVID, I've reviewed that tool myself. I've drafted a very detailed message, which includes information about hygiene, information about aftercare. And this message I sent to the client the day before the treatment. So I'm already communicating with the client. I'm already establishing a relationship with the client. And I also strongly encourage them to get in touch with me if they require any additional information or have any queries. So I think it's very important to establish that trusting relationship with the client before you even meet with them. And that's something that you can make sure you include in your practice with the clients.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Nunzia, for the advice as well, and just for reiterating how important that level of communication is. Yeah, I think we've seen it a lot as well. Right. So in terms of some other advice in terms of how to kind of boost your credentials at the moment, and really stand out. One other thing, two other things that we can recommend. I guess clients are really looking for that kind of level of trust and accreditation at the moment. So being a member of a professional body such as BABTAC, we have Leslie on the call today, so I'm sure she can speak more to this as well. But also looking at kind of trainings and accreditations in hygiene and COVID-19 specifically at the moment. So here's an example of one course called Pro Trainings. It's someone that Urban has partnered with as well. So having these extra credentials that you can advertise and also speak about to clients is something that can potentially be really valuable. And then the final piece of advice in terms of standing out that we wanted to share is marketing your business online. I guess in the context where we have kind of fewer and fewer customers kind of walking past a physical shop front, a website or an Instagram account really can be that kind of new shop front. So some pieces of advice here, really important to build your own website if you're going out on your own, and as well using Instagram as kind of that extra shop front, especially if you're working in kind of very visual treatments like nails or lashes, where you can show kind of previous treatments there. There's also a great opportunity in terms of investing in Google or Facebook ads to advertise your business. It's something that we do a lot at Urban ourselves, but it's certainly something that you can do on your own as well. The image here on the left is an example of an Urban ad on Facebook. Just some kind of specific kind of technical advice as well, if this is something you are looking to do on your own, that's important to know. So campaigns on Facebook or Google or Instagram do take time for kind of the algorithms to get learnings and start working really well. So it can take between 2 weeks to a month. So I guess the message is, don't panic if things aren't working to begin with. You do need to give some time. Also really important for you to track those ads really effectively. So you'll need to add Google and Facebook pixels onto your website to do that. And there's lots of kind of tutorials and information online that you can see to do that. If you go down the route of advertising on Facebook, you will need to include also imagery in the ads, like the image you can see in the example is actually a video. That imagery really needs to be super clear and to the point. Facebook say that it should feel really organic as an ad, so best not to crowd that image with lots of text, and instead include that text in the text boxes provided separately. And just to give you a ballpark of the kind of level of investment that you might need to take if you're doing this by yourself, typically it's about 1/3 to a half of the treatment value that you're aiming to really drive with your ads. So if you're aiming, for instance, to drive around 3 £50 treatments a day, that will probably work out as around £1,800 of investment a month. So it is quite a significant investment to make. So one where, really important to follow this kind of advice, give it the time, track it really effectively, and execute it as well as you can. Okay, so that's kind of the main sections in terms of what we've seen in the industry and what are the opportunities that we see in terms of mobile wellness and beauty. Just wanted to take a couple of minutes just to share a little bit around how Urban can help before we move on to the panel discussion to close. So at Urban, we always say to kind of potential professionals, earn more on your terms and we'll take care of the rest. And what that really means is there's a lot of aspects of kind of managing a business that can be challenging, especially when you're getting that off the ground. And a lot of those aspects we do take care of, such as the kind of marketing that we were just discussing. So in kind of detail, in terms of earnings, obviously very important. Just to give you a sense, around the top 50% of Urban practitioners earn over £900 in a 40-hour week. You're paid weekly and receive 100% of tips. So it's a nice earning model as well. Yeah, mentioned already, but we automate a lot of the aspects of running a business. So you can really focus on delivering great services. So the marketing I mentioned, but also scheduling. So when you have bookings, blocking that on your diary so no one else can book. We obviously handle payments, and we also cover payments in case of last minute cancellations, which is a really nice plus for a lot of our professionals as well. You choose when and where you work, offering that flexibility that Natalie mentioned earlier when she spoke. And we also offer a series of safety features and also chat and phone support through our customer support team. So really that kind of safety blanket to be there to help out as well, especially when you're getting started. We are open for new partners for anyone who is looking to go mobile and would like to do that with a partner rather than going it alone. So we're open for all massage treatments in beauty, we're also looking for partners in waxing, nails, facials and lashes. And we're also looking for osteopaths and physiotherapists. And in terms of the process, it's very simple. You can go to the Hero website, complete just a 2-minute application form. And then the onboarding process is a fully remote process that can be completed in just a few days. So we'll check your qualifications to make sure you meet our requirements and other legal requirements, such as a right to work check, having the right insurance according to the guidelines I already mentioned, and a clear criminal record check. We also assess your knowledge and skills to make sure you meet the quality standards that we've set for the platform. We'll educate you on how Urban works to make sure you feel comfortable with how the app works and how bookings work. And then finally, we'll create your profile that you're set up on the Urban app. So yeah, all quite a simple and fast process if it's something that you're looking to do. I guess the final message though is whether you decide to join Urban or go it alone, we're very, very happy to help you out by sharing some best practices. That's really the purpose of the webinar today, really, is to share some of the learnings that we've had over the last 6 years with anyone who is looking to go mobile, especially at this kind of challenging time. So after the call, we'll send all participants a copy of the presentation, so you have all of the details that we've gone through and some helpful additional links as well. So we'll include Urban's COVID-19 risk assessment. So anyone who needs to do their own risk assessment for their business can use that as a template if it's helpful. And we'll provide a series of links as well, for instance, to the government's guidance as well. So I'm sure everyone is probably a little bit tired of hearing my voice now. So we're going to open up the floor to a Q&A with our industry panel. So we have 5 questions that we're going to go through in order. Probably have time for 1 or 2 answers for each question. So first of all, I would like to just open up the question, kind of looping back to the initial topic that I presented, to see if anyone else has any comments on other changes that you've seen in the wellness and beauty industries as a result of COVID-19.
I can say a little bit about that.
Great.
All right. So I'm Megan. I'm the director of Jing Advanced Massage in Brighton. I also wear another hat. So I'm also on the board of the CNHC, which is a regulation, of kind of voluntary regulation authority in the UK. And what we have seen, amazingly, is a rise up of the massage community to really engage with the reality of becoming professional. And I think that that's been so exciting for us. So we've put out, actually, in the beginning of lockdown, we did 3 webinars a week that were free, that anybody could come from nationally or internationally. And there was a real engagement with wanting to know what was the right thing to do, how to keep people safe, how to keep the profession professional, and also kind of a space in which people were feeling like there's such, like there was such a unclear, like where do we all sit, right? Like how do we make sure that we're a unified force in keeping the public safe? So I think where massage therapists perhaps have felt kind of, in some ways, really alone, and there's such a dichotomy around having this really intimate, amazing experience treating people, but not really having a community to discuss with it around it. I feel like that's been a massive change. And also, as we are the largest postgraduate education independent school in the UK, we've had such a huge ask for an increase of education. So also when you talked about how do you stand out in the new normal, we've had thousands of massage therapists come to us and say, okay, I need to know how to be professional, I need to do COVID safety, but I also need to know how to help people in the pandemic. And so people are really kind of recognizing that massage therapy is not only a luxury, but for reals, it's a therapy, and how we can answer that call while staying in our remit as massage therapists. So I feel like although it has been very painful and very difficult as far as people being in business and being independent, there's also been a real excitement of saying, well, I am in control. Like I have my own life, I can have my own business, I can be mobile, I can work from home, I can make people safe. I can engage with vulnerable populations that might not be able to get out in other ways. And so I feel like there's been a real ask for education above and beyond what was the basic qualifications before, where people just were like, it's good enough because it's my hobby. People are like, massage is my life and it's my love, and I want to do it really well. So at Jing, we've just seen so much asking for that. And we've been doing also an enormous amount of education online. So people have also been spending the time to get themselves educated no matter where they were.
Amazing. Thanks, Megan. I think that's a really good, well, two really good points, both in terms of the increase in kind of education and wanting to learn, but also that sense of the community really coming together to help each other.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate on the training. My name's Alan Billington and I'm from City Lit, and we also have had a lot of response asking for training, COVID-19 specific training as well. So that has become a big aspect of what's happening now. And people are actually asking for it and want to feel safe and provide health and safety for their clients as well, really. So that retraining has become really important as well. Another thing that's come up, obviously, is a lot of people have been isolated and in lockdown, and their well-being, personal well-being, has become paramount. So that need to have treatment as well, people coming in, and that sense of touch, and the touch, as we know, is a really important aspect of feeling part of a community, feeling part of society. So there's been a lot of talk about that as well, and we've had clients, if you like. We don't provide massage treatments as such, but there's been a lot of our community at City Lit asking if it's possible to have clients and have therapists to provide treatments. So we know that there's an uptake on people wanting treatments at home. But training is the key now for COVID-19.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Alan. I think, yeah, a good reminder as well that kind of our industry is more important than it's ever been. Also, following on from the topic of training, I wanted to move on to the second question, just around what advice would any of you give to a newly qualified professional starting a mobile career? Just very conscious that there are probably a few professionals on the webinar who are in this situation. So it would be great to hear advice on that front.
Okay, hi James, I'll answer that if I may. I think I'll go on from your comments earlier that it's very, very important to make sure you have adequate insurance to cover yourself, to cover belongings, exactly what you said. I think if we're answering the question on a newly qualified therapist, it's really important to have that camaraderie and to have that support. And that can be very, very difficult for a newly qualified therapist going out on their own and working out with the salon environment. So this is where we would strongly advise partnering up with a platform like Urban to get that support and just to have somebody there to support them for everything that they're doing. But in addition, very, very important to be part of a membership organisation. Membership organisations for this industry, for example, BABTAC, we are one of the biggest and longest established membership organisations. We're there to support therapists with any advice from qualifications to standards. We've worked with the government, etc., going forward with everything as well. So we're just there as a listening ear as well to these people, just so that they know that they've got somebody else to talk to, because it is quite daunting when you're not working in a salon and you don't have a therapist next door to knock on the door and say, I've done this, what do I do? You know, I need to get out of this situation, etc. So I think that's really of paramount importance. That would be my biggest bit of advice, is to make sure you have got that kind of peer there that you can share and ask lots of questions.
Perfect. Thanks, Leslie. I think a great answer.
Can I add some more information to that from a personal point of view, having been a mobile therapist? I've kind of pretty much since time began been in this industry. So here's the rundown of the key things.
I love that.
Since time began. First of all, you are the brand. So just be professional, represent yourself well, have the best customer service, always keep learning, set a friends and family rate, because believe me, or can you just do me a massage? Are they actually going to help your business? So right from the off, set yourself a friends and family rate, collaborate with like-minded companies, and you know, collaborating with someone like Urban takes away most of the pressure of starting a new business, because they're there ready to help you. They're a network of people with a huge amount of advice. Time is money, so even if you can't get out into work, you need to be thinking about your social media content. What else can you do? How can you be informative? How can you be educational? Keep your two Instagram or social media lives separate, so no one wants to see you pouting and smiling with your dog or with your dinner. Keep your content on your personal social media separate from your business. Work healthy, work smart, look after your own well-being. It's so important. I see so many therapists burning out because you will just give your soul to a treatment, and you need to stay grounded. You need to look after yourself. And just remember that as a massage therapist, you know, like I've been a therapist for years and years, and I've realized that you do need a little bit of a thick skin. You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. You're not going to deliver a treatment to everyone's taste every single time, but always remain professional, take the feedback, you know, but stay true to yourself, because it's very easy to get upset about, you know, oh, I don't want her again, she, you know, she wasn't deep enough with her pressure or whatever. Actually, you can't be everyone's cup of tea, otherwise you'd be a mug. That's all I have to say.
Well done.
Amazing. I'm not even going to try and summarize that kind of advice and experience since time began, so I'll jump straight on to the next question.
Is the thing that you are wearing your heart on your sleeve, right? I mean, that is the big thing. So yeah.
It's about setting your own boundaries, isn't it? From the very beginning, as you so rightly said, Sam, it's so important just to get that done at the beginning, because if you don't, it's very difficult to get back. And I think that was an excellent point about doing a friends and family rate, because I think as therapists, we all have been drawn into that with friends and family, that at first you're doing it for nothing, and then you're actually turning away clients to do friends and family. So a really good point to put across there.
Yeah, I've made the mistake so you don't have to. Anyone who has to
Exactly.
now.
On that same theme, I guess we touched a little bit upon newly qualified professionals, and I'm sure a lot of the advice overlaps, but does anyone want to also comment on kind of specific advice for anyone moving from a salon or a spa into mobile?
I wanted to add something on being compliant with the COVID-19 guidelines, because there's so much to remember, you know, in terms of all you need in your backpack when you're on the street for the whole day. And it would be helpful to have, for example, a list of all the items that you could, for example, print the list out to make sure you have everything in your backpack before you go to a client's place. Also, I remember when I first started, I was covering so many different areas, and then I realized it was a bit too much for me. So it's important to actually think about the areas you want to cover when you first start. And also have an excellent profile, and as Sam said, be professional at all times.
Amazing. Thanks, Nunzia.
I think just to add on, people moving from a salon to mobile, it's hard work, being a mobile therapist. Really, it's kind of, and you've really got to stick at it. If you're, great if you can join an organisation like Urban Massage, really, because that's going to help support you. But if you're going out on your own, you've really got to stick with it and give it time as well to be able to build up clientele. I think.
Yeah, I think that's very good. I think it's something to see even with like people joining Urban. Sometimes it can take time, and going out alone, I think even more. Perfect. So just jumping on to our penultimate question, just a little bit conscious of time. Nunzia already mentioned some, but I just wanted to also see if anyone else wanted to comment on any further tips on the hygiene measures for staying safe and compliant.
Yeah, what I would say as well, I think it's really important, again, is to manage your expectations with your clients prior to any visit, if you're doing mobile visits, and to ensure that their surroundings are hygienic for you to work in, to, let them know that you do not want to have any interaction with any other parts of the household, etc., and that you do expect a level of hygiene when you are going to somebody's home. Obviously, we can be responsible ourselves for our hygiene procedures, but it's very important that the client knows what we're expecting from them as well. And I think to always act professionally, always make sure you are wearing your PPE, that you are reassuring the client that they are comfortable getting the treatment, because at the moment people are scared. The government have put out that we are working in close contact, we are in the danger zone, and all these words that are getting used are slightly putting a lot of people off to have any treatments done. So it's up to us as professionals to promote ourselves as being very, very safe, very compliant, and that it is safe to have a treatment done just now.
Yeah.
And I would say as well, do all of your safety, your wiping down, your cleansing, your sanitizing of your hands, putting on your PPE in front of the client, because that really does instill confidence. Dispose of your mask and your gloves correctly, because I see so many, and it just, you're flinging do it correctly. When wearing a mask, I know how difficult it is to do a treatment where wearing a mask. Just be mindful of your breathing. So you want to be doing your belly breathing rather than breathing through your chest, because it's hard work doing a massage anyway without adding a mask to the equation. So always be mindful of your belly breathing. It's also really good for your core. And that's it from me on that one.
Just another one, Sam, just to add to you, please, when people are wearing visors, wear them properly. Don't wear them like a tennis hat. They are meant to be down over your face, not like a tennis visor. I think very, very important. And to make sure that you are following the guidelines. They're there for a reason. They're there to protect us. They're there to protect our clients, and they're to, we would try and advocate that you do them to protect the industry, just so that we don't have the high instance rate of track and trace coming from hair or beauty professionals. So I think if we all act really professionally, wear the masks, as you said, Sam, so rightly, they're not comfortable, they're not the easiest things in the world to work with, but doctors and nurses have done it for years. We wanted our industry back up and running, and that was the caveat, that was the trade that we got back to do it. So we've just got to do it until such times we don't.
Can I add something that Nunzia said earlier? Advertise it, put it on your blog, tell people what you do in the form of health and hygiene as well. And if you're unsure, Urban are already upskilling or training the therapists in COVID-19 protocols, but there are now qualifications out there. So, you know, get yourself enrolled onto a COVID infection prevention qualification, really, and have that there so people can see, you know, that you're taking the whole process seriously.
Perfect. And just on some of the topics discussed, I'll also share in the materials that we circulate after the webinar some more details also around, you know, how to actually put on a mask correctly, how to take off a mask correctly, how to properly wear a visor, you know, so it's covering from your forehead to below the chin and around the face, because it's not just that, as Sam kind of so rightly mentioned, it's not that superficial level of I am wearing a mask or I am wearing a visor. There are guidelines beyond that into actually how to do it, how to put it on, how to dispose of it correctly. And it's so important for you not just to do that, but also for your client to see you doing that, so that they feel comfortable. Just finally, final questions. We've also touched on this one, I think, already a fair bit, but just wanted to open up one final time for any other kind of further recommendations on really standing out as a mobile professional, both kind of specifically at this time in a kind of COVID context, but also any time.
So James, one of the things that I found really interesting, so when Barber & Blow became a service provider for Urban, I also went onto the app as well, because coming back into the salon, I wasn't as busy as I would like to be because we're based mainly in the city. So I took a couple of days at the beginning where I was going in during the week and providing services. And one of the things that I actually found that was really beneficial to me in standing out against my own staff was using my reviews. You know, you guys have built an app that works fantastically for the service providers to be able to make themselves a good choice. If you've got reviews and if you've got good feedback, it's very easy for you as a service provider to show people that you should be doing that. You should be promoting yourself. Just quickly as well, so I missed the opportunity to say this, but the biggest change in the industry, which I think is really important for people to be aware of, is the fact that people are not in town and city centres. If you go into the suburbs of London at the moment, they're incredibly busy Monday to Friday and on the weekends as well. It's quite clear that people are around their homes, they're working from home, they're spending more time at home, and they're willing to take the opportunity to use the daytime to run errands. And that includes to have their hair cut or to get a massage or to get a manicure or pedicure. So if you have been working in a conventional salon that's on a high street, this is a really good way for you to be able to subsidize your income during quite a poor economic downturn and make sure that you're still able to kind of generate the salary, the wages that it is that you're used to, when a lot of people aren't actually able to. So it would be my advice to anyone who's watching this, who is working in a salon, who's maybe only working 3 or 2 or 4 days a week, to take the opportunity to come on board with Urban and to add that extra time and those extra days where they can to improve their own income.
Perfect. I think it's a really good point, Ben, as well. It's something we saw a lot when we reopened as well, is quite significant changes in customer behavior of those times that were really kind of busy and peak times. So yeah, I think it's a really great point that adjusting to that as well is a really important way of making sure you maintain that level of earning.
I'd also say one of the biggest things that we've been advocating is for people to diversify. So as we are practitioners, all of us, no matter what our field, our work has always been defined by the hands-on. It's like your client hour was your money hour and that kind of thing. But jumping on Sam said and others, it's like your Instagram account, sure, but also like thinking about you as a wellness provider or any kind of provider for some things about somebody's well-being, whether it's beauty, whether it's massage. It's about supporting people throughout it and making yourself COVID secure, like your business COVID secure. So we did a lot of work around getting complementary therapists online, putting yourself in front of a camera, starting to make little videos around things that help you, whatever the tips are within the industry. For us, it's, you know, stretching or different kinds of range of motion work or understanding what injury might be. But all of us in the profession have experience that others are looking for. And so if you can get yourself out in front and you make yourself, you share, you know, share your knowledge with integrity, then people will respond to that. And as Ben said, then you start to get people to like you and make a choice of you over someone else, mostly because you're dedicated to them. And so what we tried to say as soon as lockdown happened was, you're not out of work. Yeah, it's about, like, you have to think more creatively about how to keep your work and your passion alive. And so that when we change, so if it's going to the country, if it's going to the city, if it's going online, if it's being able to help people in different spaces, that every practitioner will be able to do that. And I think that is also changing the industry to realize I'm not paid by the hour anymore. You know, it's about kind of who I am as a time frame. So your hours of urban is part of a larger framework of how you're working, or your work from home, or your work, you know, however you may deliver it. And I think that that really, in order to keep the profession professional, we have to think of ourselves that way at all times. And for me, I think that that's exciting. And although it is hard being a mobile therapist, it's also incredible that we can still do that, you know, and these are the things we're doing, PPE, but of course, take it all on board.
Fantastic. Thanks, Megan. On that note, and I'm slightly sad to have to cut the conversation short, but just in the interest of time, I think I'll just wrap up the panel discussion there. So a big thank you to all of the participants who have joined on the live stream on YouTube, and even a bigger thank you to all of the panel representatives, and also Natalie and Nunzia, who have joined also to share their experience of working mobile. Yeah, I thought it was an amazing event. I really hope that everyone found it interesting and helpful as well. So just a really big thanks on my side for everyone joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, and stay safe. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hope to see you all soon.
Stay connected.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.